Unmute Murali sir and start. Murali sir, please unmute and start.
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, very well. We are listening you.
Thank you for inviting me to the Indore Study Circle. I'm happy to be with you all this morning. I was more happy if this was happening as scheduled 3 weeks later. But due to reasons beyond my control, this is happening today. Sushil ji and few others know about it. I would have been more happier to have this 3 weeks later because there is a comfort in having enough time to prepare for an event. We all look for such comforts in living. And probably we are always wanting comforts. But all of us are also attached to those comforts in every aspect of our living. But life always surprises one with challenges, giving no time often. Life is mysterious and unpredictable, unknown that way, isn't it? We may not be fine with the mystery and with the unknown aspect of living. Don't you think so? I live in a campus with a centralized kitchen. Morning, invariably, I meet a child on her way to breakfast in the dining hall. She will ask me, "Uncle, what is there for breakfast?" Quickly she adds, "Give me only a hint." She loves to play and she will make many guesses. I wonder about her approach and the joy in making everything a play. Whereas, if I am meeting another colleague on the way, "What is there for breakfast?" is always a direct question. Children love to play given an opportunity. They are interested in exploring the unknown playfully. As we grow older, are we losing such an exploration and joy? Is it because of approaching things as a matter of fact always? Or is it because of wanting to be sure of everything? When I thought of having today's topic just as 4L, there is probably mystery, ambiguity, and perhaps curiosity. Will there be discomfort? Not explained as looking, listening, learning, and living in the invite? I wonder. Isn't it life a play and a mystery? Have we stopped looking at life as a play? We are all very serious. Why? Will we be able to unravel the mystery if we are so seriously approaching life? Life is a leela, say some mystics. Why do mystics say that? Is it because we will never be able to understand life logically? What is life living for us? I don't think it is a play, as the mystics say. It is a struggle. Most of us trying to make the both ends meet. Why this world is in such a way? Living is a constant occupation, activities without which we feel no life. Is that the reason why we are running after a fast life? Somebody said, we are running and all our energy is in that running. And as we grow older, when we are unable to run, we tumble and fall. And still people are running, probably on top of us. We are appreciating activities which are understood as a sign of life. I think the present uncertainties created by COVID-19, the lockdowns, all that made us more restless. Now we are approaching probably a fear of third wave. Just today morning, one of our friends was telling how tiresome it was to travel. I would like to quote K. Quote begins, I think most of us are aware, perhaps only rarely, since most of us are so terribly occupied and active. But I think we are aware sometimes that the mind is empty. And being aware, we are afraid of that emptiness. We have never inquired into that state of emptiness. We have never gone into it deeply, profoundly. We are afraid, and so we wander away from it. Quote ends. This is such a beautiful pointer K is giving, isn't it? Is that the reason why we are active most of the time? We have filled our days, weeks, and months with activities. We have made this world that way. And we see the struggle all around. People are stressed out. Even children are stressed out. And the trend is increasing steadily. Boredom and stress making people to look for entertainment. Entertainment is a huge industry presently. Inwardly, we are full of knowledge. We value knowledge, worship knowledge. Why? Is that also because of fear of inward emptiness? And we gather all kinds of knowledge. And that knowledge is dominating in all the activities in our daily living. When there is any kind of domination, life is a struggle, life is a battlefield, outwardly and inwardly. We see the fight, we see the discomforts, we see the war outwardly, getting killed and killing. We also see people unable to take this stress battle further inwardly, committing suicide. And being caught in that battle, mainly the battle within, in our own minds. Can we say we are living? Are we living? Can we call this struggle going on outwardly and inwardly living? Aren't we knowingly or not guided by this past knowledge which we have gathered all the time? If one is caught in the past, which is dead, is that living? What else is our living? Is it possible to see the way one is living? We are surely in need of food, clothes, and shelter. They are the basic requirements. Do we treat these as just a necessity for all living things? I don't think so. I feel that in that case, there is enough for everyone. But that's not happening around that way. Poverty, malnutrition, and homeless people are all over the world. Someone said that there is enough on this planet for the needs, but not for the greed. Today morning, when I joined the Zoom meeting quite earlier, one of our participants, was talking about K. I'm always amazed the way K lived. He lived one among the many, sharing the food and shelter so beautifully. Whether he was in America, California, or in Europe, or in India, in the foundation centers, or being a guest in many, many hosts' homes, he lived just as one among them. It's so beautiful. The living was never a struggle for him. Isn't it important to understand that we are interdependent with everybody, everything around us? Is it possible if one is dominated by the past all the time? Even in a small family, as our guest in the morning, was sharing, we are caught up with our spouse, children, relatives. And he was wondering, did K and Abdul Kalam lead a different life because they are not married? I'm not sure whether you are married or not, it's going to make a difference. But it is all about how you look at life and how you live your day-to-day life. Is it possible if one is dominated by the past within all the time to understand this interdependence? In our life, we can see that we are dominated by ideas and ideals. For example, is being single, unmarried, will resolve the problems? I don't think so. It's just an idea, probably. Aren't we caught by these ideas and concepts and fragmented life into ourselves, whether we are a family man or whether we are part of an organization or whether we are just an unmarried person, maybe even living in an ashram or a cave? K seems to be questioning that kind of a fragmented life. Probably all of us know this, but continue to live in a fragmented manner. Why? This fragmentation is not only superficial, physical, but it is in our consciousness. Our consciousness is full of these ideas and ideals and concepts of living. There is struggle outwardly and inwardly. Because of that, probably the whole crisis is within us. Until we die to this consciousness, are we living at all? Probably we haven't learned that dying is living. The whole movement of life is learning is another beautiful phrase of K. And he often used this. Isn't that indicating that living is connected to learning? That brings us to the question of what is learning? The second L I would like to explore myself as part of the topic today. All of us are educated and have learned a great deal. For most of us, learning is associated with schools and colleges. And if we are working, there are workshops, enrichment programs, and seminars where we continue to learn in bits and pieces. For most of us, learning is associated with schools and colleges. I'm sure that it has come from our deep culture. The culture also talks about the first phase of life is a student life, the brahmacharya. Finding a right teacher and completing studies is that first phase. Even in the modern world, all over, the first 20, 30 years goes into studies, learning in quotes. Why is our education devoid of learning about living? But it's always about livelihood. And then we continue to struggle to make the two ends meet. More one is educated, more is the urge to live with a better livelihood. And this word better is that contributed by the so-called learning in educated circles and in education places, spaces. Krishnaji denied all that, the ashrams and temples and gurus, because he said there is no learning there. So what is this learning he's talking about? Our education is concerned about learning at all? I wonder. And more, the so-called education all over the world is controlled and systematized. It is not possible to learn differently in that system. Aren't we a small fraction of people feeling helpless and lost in these systems? But for the vast majority, the learning, the competition, and the secured jobs and the campus recruitment are very important goals. And we all wish our children to be part of that. Is there a different way of learning? How do we understand that? Is that learning connected to living, not to livelihood, not to succeed, not to come successfully in the battle? Isn't it a fact that we are holding on to ideas and concepts learned so dear to us? Aren't we assuming that there is no way to end these ideas and concepts which has already been learned in this past 25 years or 30 years of living, because that is our learning time. Aren't we assuming that there is no way to end these ideas and concepts? Isn't that the reason for continuing this fragmented life? Are we not holding on to the past and thinking that one is living? Are we living? We are bombarded with a lot more new ideas and skills every day. And the modern learning is all about acquiring these new ideas and skills. This kind of learning is not making us independent and makes life more and more complicated. Isn't it visible? Isn't this continuity because we are lost in this accumulative learning? So the question naturally comes up, what else is a different way of learning? If the whole movement of life is learning, what is that learning? Who is the teacher? What is the subject? Where is this passing exams and having degrees? That's only a silly affair in the schools. Are we capable of such learning? What is the toolkit for this learning? This is taking us to the next two L's. Let me explore listening and looking as I understand. I feel that life is providing an ability to learn to all. Outwardly, barring a few, all of us have this capacity. But are we listening or just hearing? I think that we start as kids listening to everything. Schooling, which is a systematized programming, slowly and steadily makes this listening into selective hearing. In our homes and the societies too, selective hearing is appreciated. So, that innate ability to listen is distorted to selective hearing. And that is very comforting and conforming. Something is happening when that is limited. But the same thing is happening in looking, in seeing as well. We are brought up with selective seeing. We are encouraged to see only certain things. I'm sure that you have heard about the three wise monkeys. This story is associated to Gandhiji. But this is much, much older. It is seen in Chinese and Japanese culture as well. And I'm sure that we have the same kind of models in all over the world. Three monkeys don't speak evil, don't see evil, don't hear evil. I wonder what would happen if we see or listen evil. Seeing and listening is not only with the outer senses. So we are afraid of that influence. So I don't want my children, I don't want my spouse, I don't want my parents to see things which I consider as evil. I don't want them to listen things which I consider as evil. You see how this is distorted? But this is deeply influenced all our living from very young age. So, if seeing and listening is not only with outer senses, it is much more inwardly, we leave that psyche, the consciousness, completely untouched for 25, 30 years. We have no clue. Nobody is talking about it. And that is the prime period of learning. And we come across, a master or somebody who is saying things differently, and we are attracted. But we have equipped with a pattern of learning accumulative in nature. And this kind of upbringing is conditioning each one of us unknowingly to a great extent. We stop seeing this conditioning because we have never seen, we have never looked. Because of selective seeing, it is incapable of just looking and seeing. But all of us are brought up in this conditioned, selective looking and listening. You see, it is quite scary. So the question is, are we doomed? Are we, for generations, being cultivated in this way, incapable of living, learning, listening, and looking differently? Is it possible to break free? Now again, being educated in this conditioned way, being learned to look and listen this way, we ask this question: what is the toolkit? Is the key inside us? Are we understanding all these through words because of this conditioning, the conditioning of learning? Is there a hint in the very inquiry, questioning? Is that hint taking us beyond conditioning and understanding through words? K seems to have had many dialogues pointing to a possibility. A possibility which can't be cultivated or put in a dogma. Let me repeat. K is pointing to a possibility which can't be put in a dogma or cultivated. But all over, we see the so-called interpretations of masters as a dogma. We have probably nothing to do with those great personalities who lived like us or K. But when we make their teachings a dogma, when we worship them as an idea, concept, an ideal or idol, we are missing the bus, isn't it? So there is no other is that possibility in living, learning, listening, and looking in this now. Because whatever we have accumulated, and if we are operating from that accumulation, it's not living. Of course, we can use the words. We have learned the language. Of course, we can quote somebody. But beyond a point, they are stale. So how do I and you live with our kith and kin, whether they are our wife, husband, children, so-called family relatives or colleagues or friends or strangers? How do we live with all kinds of animals around us? They're all living. How do we live with the plants, the trees, and this beautiful nature? If we are not connected, are we living at all? So this living, learning, listening, and looking is very, very profound. When we take this for granted, we are wanting somebody to tell us what is the right way of living, what is the right action, what is the right relationship, what is the right way of dying. That's all part of living. So without fragmenting any of those things, is it possible for us to live, learn, listen, and look? Will that be seen by our children, the people around us? Will they be wondering that beauty of such a kind of living which K demonstrated probably throughout his living? I don't think it is because K was discovered, or I don't think it is because K was trained by some masters. I feel what K is pointing, that it is possible for you and me, anybody who is interested. Maybe we are very few in number, doesn't matter. We haven't learned. All our learning had distorted, made us into a bonsai. That's okay. Can we make a beginning today? It'll be nice to, explore together. I thought of sharing some portion of it, and I really would love to have your comments and also love to have a dialogue. Let me pause here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Harshad Parekh, will you please unmute and comment?
Okay. Are you able to hear?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Murali. You have covered quite a bit. You said in the beginning something about children. Children are very playful, and as they grow older, they acquire a lot of knowledge and they become very self-conscious, and they begin to lose curiosity and playfulness. So this happens to all human beings. About the suffering, there is suffering for all human beings. I remember a song of Mother India, the old film, which says, दुनिया में हम आए तो जीना ही पड़ेगा, जीवन अगर जहर है तो पीना ही पड़ेगा. So suffering exists for all human beings, and even Buddha said that life is suffering, but there is a cause for suffering, and then there is an understanding of suffering, and then there is a freedom from suffering. So people who really want the freedom, it is possible, but one has to understand from where this suffering comes. Like when there is anger, a person who is interested will ask, what is anger? How does it come? Why I get angry? But people who say it is natural and why should not I be angry? Then there is no possibility of freedom. But people who really want to investigate the cause of suffering, whether it's anger, fear, jealousy, then they have to sit alone and turn the attention inward and look how it arises, all these thoughts and feelings. So the question is whether students, young people, can they be shown how to sit quietly and turn the attention inward and look with curiosity how thoughts and feelings arise and how problems come in relationship. So I think that Krishnamurti schools were created for only this purpose, that students can be shown that there is a possibility of understanding our deeper problems which we create because we have not looked deeper into ourselves. And that is what Krishnaji was pointing out. And he had dialogues with students every year. He was coming to Rishi Valley, and even young students about 9, 10 years old, they were listening to him and they were having a dialogue with him. But generally what happens that as children grow older, they become very self-conscious and lot of knowledge they have to acquire. And then there is a fear of examinations come and all that looking inward, it becomes very difficult. And there is a lot of pressure from parents, from society to do well in examinations. So even in Krishnamurti schools, this kind of deterioration of curiosity, looking inward, it happens. And so we find that even after studying in Krishnamurti school like Rishi Valley, students pick up the habits like smoking or drinking or drugs. So the environment exists in Rishi Valley or in other Krishnamurti schools for students who really want to look inward and really want to be free and really enjoy life. But such curiosity is in very, very few students. And for such students, there is a possibility. And okay, I think I have said enough. Thank you.
Sarma sir, please unmute and say.
Murali sir, good morning. It was a very enlightening talk. I appreciate that you have covered, encompassed all the talk has encompassed all the points. But however, I feel the charity begins at home. As a parents, as you said, we can educate our children to a larger extent at home itself. That is one point. But unfortunately, we have such an educational system where the student is continuously subjected to cutthroat competition. It becomes a rat race. They're all working at a tremendous competition. The subjected to the tremendous pressure of facing the examinations, comparison, all kinds of things are there. But unfortunately, no educational institution will explain them to connect the student to the nature. They never take them outside. They're all confined to only four walls and continuously subjected to this, what do you call, the content or transformation of transfer of learning only. Only subject is transferred to the students, but never anything discussed about the nature. But what measures we need to take to bring out a change, a sea change in the educational system? That is my worry. Thank you, sir.
Ravi sir, please unmute and say.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Today morning itself, I faced my own fear, confronted it by putting myself in a situation, and I observed that there was no fear while I was alert and awake during that confrontation. And post that, even I had no fear, no high BP, means no rhythm of blood. So that way, I first time in my life I tried to face my fear. And the topic was listening, watching, observing, and I think you started very well. But somewhere I was expecting more of the talk on these three things, because I do not know how to observe, watch, and listen, because all the time my mind is wandering, even if listening K or your talk. Sometimes my thought comes and my mind goes into wandering. So how to learn it? Can we learn it? Because the way you started about the childhood, we were all good in those things, those days. We were all enjoying, because I have no childhood memory, because I was having fun of my life, flying kites and just playing. So post that, we are into the traumatic life of struggling, achieving something, and reaching somewhere. So after this struggle, where should I start? How should it start? And where should I look at myself? At what point? Where? What? How? Thank you.
If I quickly, come back to what Sarmaji and Ravi had said, then come to Dinesh ji, is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, I think what Sarmaji made, the charity begins at home. I think children, before they come to even to the schools, they start learning, looking and listening, and actually living in the homes. So it's a great responsibility, for the parents and everybody in the home. Now, as Ravi is pointing out, once we come out of that wonderful environment, the insanity in the name of education, we are just taken into one direction of accumulating knowledge. Parekh sir also was mentioning that. And the governments all over the world want children to come into that kind of a mold. They just want you to obey. They just want you to be, following. They don't want you to ask questions. So it is a great responsibility for parents and adults and anybody who is interested in exploring this kind of a living to do that kind of a hand holding if possible. But we are so conditioned as parents, and we are also conditioned by our upbringing. We don't know what to do. I think that is what Sarma ji also was asking. I feel that if one is not get caught in the worry of what am I supposed to do, but I'm genuinely asking this question. What am I supposed to do right now in front of my child? The approach is very different. I think it is possible to be with them, to listen to them, and take them through their conflicts because of the exposure which happened, knowingly or unknowingly, in the universities, in the schools, in the society. If we shy away from that, if we think that a specialist, a psychologist, or some coach, or some wise person outside will lead my child, that is again coming out of our own conditioning. So it is a very, very tight rope walk for all of us if we are living fully. There is always challenges. So we have never learned that kind of looking and listening and learning and living. So shall we start? Is it possible for us to begin that we cannot take life for granted anymore? I just leave with that question. I pause here.
Dinesh Waghmare, please unmute and say.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, my question is, okay, I know that I am conditioned. I can see my conditioning. Now, what I have to learn by just seeing and listening? What I am supposed to learn? Can you expand on this or elaborate?
Yes, sir. See, this question is coming from conditioning. Our children, if you have noticed, the youngest ones, they never ask, what am I supposed to do now? They are, yesterday we had a very beautiful activity in the campus with all the staff coming together, and they were doing, activities for Mela. There was a 5-year-old girl. She liked the colors. She liked the way things are made. She was just there for 3 hours without any, questions. She was just learning and doing, learning and doing, learning and doing. Now, am I and you lost the interest in learning when we are seeing what is around us, when we are listening to people when they are saying? We are only asking from a space which we don't know what to do. Is that the problem due to our conditioning? Or is it really possible to wake up from this conditioned way of living, which we think we are living? And we just want, more and more answers. I just thought of, opening it up that way, sir.
May
Sir,
I say something?
may I say something in between? Actually, this will, without any direction, this will make my likings are changing every moment. So this will make me frivolous. This will not, I'm not sure whether I am in which direction I am going. So freedom doesn't mean chanchalta, what we say in Hindi. What do you have to say, sir?
After you, Parekh sir, you wanted to say
Oh,
something?
yeah, yes. How students learn. Of course, teachers can talk with students about what happens when somebody says something unpleasant to you. Is it possible to really listen and not react very quickly and see what even somebody says something unpleasant, to give some pause to see whether it is true or false. So we can talk about students to students, and in a school like Rishi Valley or Rajghat, teachers have a lot of time and they can talk with students during weekends or in the evening or at night or in the hostel. Lots of opportunity there. But uh, I wanted to say that, yes, I remember now, how students learn. Sometimes it comes by just observing, not thinking so much. Like the principal of Sayadri School, Umaka, told me this story that during Astachal, where students sit quietly and they look at the sunset, and they are supposed to be quiet. And one girl, she was looking at the two clouds. They were coming close to each other, and she thought that when these clouds they come and hit each other, there will be some conflict. But she observed that these two clouds, they merge very easily without any problem. And I have seen thousands of birds flying in a cloud, and another cloud of birds, they mix with each other, but they don't collide. And these birds somehow they are able to fly together, merge together. And this girl, when she saw that, she thought, okay, there is a possible, because she had a conflict with another girl in the hostel, and she learned by watching this non-verbally that yes, it is possible to be free from conflict with people around us if we just give little space to each other. So a lot of learning happens by observing nature, and those people who are more inward looking, they can learn. But people who are restless, even when they are supposed to be quiet, some students, they pick up a stone and throw at others because their mind is so much chattering that they don't know what is happening. And so sometimes even when I talk with students and when they are sitting on the mat, their hands are picking at the mat and they are breaking the mat, and they don't know that what their hands are doing though they may be listening. So it has to do with the ability to be quiet, to give full attention to what is happening outside and what is happening inside within ourselves. So it's not very easy. It depends. But we used to have dialogues with students who wanted to have dialogue voluntarily. So in Rishi Valley, many students were coming every Saturday, and we were discussing about the problems which arise in our life, in the school, and in society, and in the country. So lot of possibility exists. Okay, finished. Thank you for taking so much time.
Pradeep Verma, you please start
Yes,
saying.
sir.
Mm.
It's audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Audible. Okay.
Mm.
We have taken up this topic, beautiful topic, that gives yet another chance to explore this collectively in the light of JK's teachings. To me, all the teachings belong to the category of what should be. Compared and contrast with what is as perceived by some seer or a number of seers or wisdom seekers. So still it requires to be explored. After even a century, we are exploring the same things again and again. The message is somehow has not reached or has not done the job. A number of such issues have been taken up in semi-educational platforms, but are swept away by a force field much stronger and louder than the bleak little sound of the truth. For example, violence. There are books, lectures, dialogues on this. Even there is a full book by Krishnamurti on violence. But the river of violence flows with stronger force than ever. Where have we taken a wrong turn? That was one inquiry. Then second is we say that Jaisi Drashti, Vaisi Srishti. When we see whole house burning metaphorically, which eye we are talking about, and what happened afterwards. We are occupied around K's teachings in various ways, in various fora, and the master says ultimately, nobody has understood. Another question, another query is the role of circumstances in K's awakening. When we see a direct role of our circumstances in our life and what our perception about life is, what are the values we enjoy and everything, because I have seen that even of so much of discussion, so much of literature available on wisdom, right from Vedas to Upanishads to a number of in Christian mystics and so many seers, Nisargadaji, Raman Maharshi. What is most important to me? What is most important, and what is everybody can see, but still we are discussing the same thing, exploring within, without, the same things. So this is a dilemma. This is something very, because after all this rigmarole, after all this exercise, after all this occupation, from this to that and everything, what is important? So please, Murali sir, please say something about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You have said it. From time immemorial, man's quest have taken us through this. The seers, the so-called seers, whom we label them as seers, have brought this out in different ways. And what more can be said? K had said everything, and it is all there recorded. It is there in the voice and the videos, beautifully English. Now, this is one point even I felt. K seems to be pointing to a possibility which cannot be cultivated or put in a dogma. If we are just reading what K had said, or if we are just remembering what K had said, probably we are appreciated. The words are, words of wisdom. But if it is no use for me, if my life is still confined in mine and, I'm looking at you as you, there is no dialogue. Whether it is in my home, whether it is in my workplace, I continue this battle. So, is there a living which is not a battle? Are we tasting it in our day-to-day living? Not just thinking, not assuming that probably what I am doing is right. No. Especially young children, they are fearless. They are pointing out what you are doing is not right, probably. Can we listen to the youngest? Can we not, brush aside the youngest in the family and respect somebody whom we have labeled as a master? Could be a helper in the garden, could be a worker in a department store, could be a policeman in the traffic, maybe saying something, but am I listening? Am I just understanding what he is saying through words, or am listening what he is pointing through words? This happens naturally, spontaneously, all the time in our life. And it is essential that, these are probably sufficient for us to take through this conditioning, something beyond. Thank you so much, Pradeep ji.
Thank you.
Please, sir.
Yeah.
Can
May I
you-
say something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Parekh,
please go
continue.
ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Krishnaji's teachings are very good, but I feel that at a young age, students should be taught yoga, pranayam, meditation. All these are very, very important in making a mind receptive to listen, because without the mind, if the mind is thinking too much, then it cannot listen. And this is the problem which we find with young people, that they are not able to listen. They are very, very restless. And the whole culture is towards making them restless with a video game and all the mobile. So it is very, very important that in all schools, whether it's Krishnamurti schools or any other school, the yoga, pranayam, meditation at a young age, though it may be difficult, but I think it is like we taught mathematics to students, whether they like it or not, it's made compulsory. Similarly, this yoga, pranayam, meditation is very, very important, and it can really help in making the mind receptive to what Krishnamurti or Buddha or Upanishad, Gita is saying. Okay, thank you.
May I request Shakti sir to say something? Shakti sir, please unmute and say.
Yeah, my voice is reaching, sir.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
voice.
very clear, very clear.
Yeah. You see, a friend has written in the chat box that when the four eyes, four L's are controlled by social binding, that I cannot grasp it. What does he mean by social binding? He has added fear also, that I understand. Because when I look
Little
at myself,
louder, please. Little louder,
Louder,
please.
Loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I look at myself, the problem with listening, looking, and learning is the habit of mechanicalness, or the habit of not selective listening, as you said in the beginning. So that mechanicalness comes in the way, but this social binding, which a friend has written in chat box, how social binding can control listening, that I was not able to understand. If just that I wanted to say. Thank you.
May I, not to Shakti ji directly, but I also got another message saying that in my presentation I did talk about life is a mystery. So the request is, can you elaborate a little on that? So this is from one of the participants. So we have taken life for granted. I really don't know what you will be asking. If I'm not listening, I may quickly, conclude what you have asked is this or that. And I really don't know why you are asking and from where you are asking. Because we have seen that the sense organs involved in seeing and listening is just the eye and the ear. But the mind behind it, brings a different kind of perception for each one. So I may see something as nice, someone else may see something as, harsh. So there is a difficulty in communion. There is a difficulty in communication. We can't, go further, which we have understood as a problem of living, and we have managed with authority. Then we will ask the elder person, whatever he or she say, that will be the rule of the day. Now we have the court, the judge, what he is saying or what she is saying after final arguments by both the sides will be the judgment. Life is not based on anybody's judgment. Life is based on seeing things, not looking it as a problem, but accept that this has happened. And don't say why this happened to me, why not to my neighbor. And Do what you can there at that point of time. And we don't want that mystery, what is there in the store tomorrow. I don't want to leave it as mystery. I want to just narrow down to how this should happen. And I'm struggling to make things happen in that way. You can't prevent a COVID third wave if it is to happen. And why it is happening? It is not in our hand. Maybe post-analysis can bring a viewpoint, but that viewpoint will be countered with another viewpoint. So if you see in your everyday life, why suddenly somebody, starts listening to you, or why somebody is not listening to you, you really don't know. It's a mystery. You are trying your level best to open up and share, whether it is a student, whether it is your family member, whether it is your friend, but the other person is not interested, and it's a mystery. Why? It's a question, and that question is something mystery. And why some people are, healthy, why some people are suddenly, going through turmoils, we don't know. There is a poetic version in Malayalam. Malika Mukaleriya Mannande Tolil Marapu Ketunnadum Bhavan. That means a person who is living in a palace, next day he is a pauper. He is on the street. How can you explain this? That is what is happening. There are many, many, many people who had secured everything in their life, but they are suddenly somewhere else. Now, the karma theory can bring in, explanations, but all those are demystifying the real life. It's a mystery. You really don't know why suddenly your child comes and hugs you and say, Papa, I love you. I don't know. But that is what is happening at that point of time. So there are smaller to larger incidents in life, always, surprising us if we are looking at it as a mystery. This is what I feel.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. May I say something?
Yeah. Please,
Yeah.
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
This life, our body was body and brain and mind. They were not created by us. The whole universe with billions of galaxies and billions of stars in each galaxy, such a vast universe, it's a mystery. And then this life, human life, we were not there. How it came, the first life in the universe. And then after the whole evolution happened, it's not our creation. And then finally we arrived human beings, and then we invented language and this thinking and feeling and talking, all is mystery, really. So the mystery, if we want to feel, maybe silence and a freedom from the problems which normally we have, fear or anger, jealousy. And if we can really sit quietly and look inward at the beginning of a thought, and in that state, the mind coming to a stop, and really we can really see the real beauty around us in nature, in human beings, in the color, in the sky, in the birds, animals. So there is really great beauty around us. But if we are too much occupied with thinking, even with the idea of trying to find the mystery, that is also a kind of a occupation. So only thing we can do is to be silent and to observe what is outside and what is inside. And in that, when there is a gap between thoughts, when there is a silence, one can really feel something great. And that is why Krishnaji used words like blessings, otherness, benediction, and many other people have described the mystery. So there is a mystery we don't know, but there is a possibility of just getting a sense of it. Okay, finish. Thank you.
Pradeep Verma, you wanted to say something?
No, for me, issue mystery is what we don't know. What we don't know, and we love to know as human beings, and what we don't know, and no exploration has helped answering those questions. That's a mystery for me. So mystery is not a mystery that way. It is simple, and we have our limitations. We have everything is limited. All my senses are limited. Only certain wavelengths come to me. Only certain things are available to me. Whereas I am in the cosmos, with full of everything. In that, my presence is with limitations. So rest of it is a mystery. And if I am a person questioning type, why it is so, why that so naturally I start probing it. So there is nothing, mystery is definitely very interesting. It allows you to probe further and enhance this knowledge field. So mystery is the best part of the life. Thank you very much.
Kamlesh Modak, please unmute and say. Kamlesh Modak.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
very well, very well.
I put the question in the chat box to Murali sir for the basic reason that whenever one feels mystery about anything, he's attracted towards it, and he tries to attend to that. What is the role of that in the learning itself?
Thank you. You're asking me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very well.
Yes. Thank you so much once again. You know, in my presentation, I was saying, I have heard this, many people saying life is a play. It's amazing. When I was learning in college, the English teacher, quoting one of the greatest authors ever in English, saying this, you're all actors and life is a play. And when I was really interested in understanding the seers, Sri Ramakrishna used to often say, it's all a leela. It's a leela by that grand old lady. The moment you understand, you are out of the game. She will not keep you in the game. It's so interesting. So I just asked this question, when the mystics say that it is a play, life is a play, or life is a leela, is it because we will never be able to understand life logically? Now, coming to Kamaleshji's question, the learning we have made it completely logical and beliefs and through words. So to understand life, if we are educated and if we are continuing to learn only through words and only through logic, it is limited. It will never understand, it will never throw light to this vast universe. You have just such a small lifetime. And when you look at the, astronomers, the way they are depicting the whole universe, you are not even there for a speck of a moment. It's such a small life and you're going to measure this immeasurable. So K seems to be talking, thought has its place in our daily living. making, life possible, expressed through this body and mind. But it has no place in many other aspects of our living. And it is a real mystery. Are we ready to accept this fact that we are limited with our knowledge, logic, and reasoning, and all that is education today? They are bringing new theories and trying to explain something which is beyond your explanation. Did I answer you, Kamleshji?
Right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dinesh Waghmare,
My
you
question is,
last
Murali sir,
question you can ask.
Time is coming to end. Time is coming to end. Please, Murali sir, please.
Yeah, Dineshji, I'm so happy that you're holding on to that question. What is there to learn? Now, when life is dynamic, you can't approach it from the past which you know. I really don't know why are you asking that question again, because you have asked that earlier. And I see that it is quite an important question. If I'm not making my life as something has happened, in the past, and I'm approaching it from that past, I'm eager to understand. I'm eager to explore. And if I'm having an approach of that kind, I have all the energy to approach. Now, my eyes and ears are open. I'm quite alive. I'm not sleeping. I'm not dismissing what you're asking. Am I living with that kind of an alertness? Am I living with that kind of an energy which life is providing? Now, then we start seeing differently. We start listening to people differently. It is no more just the verbal communication. It is something much more than that. Otherwise, our lives are very dull. We are just caught in boredom and repetition, and we want to go to be entertained by somebody. You see, Parekh sir was saying, at a very young age, you see this in children. And old age, it is obvious. People are lost in their loops. They are caught in their thought. There is nothing, interesting to them. There is nothing to learn. They feel they have already learned everything. How come the brain get degenerated? From a very young age, you had that curiosity. You had that urge to understand. You were looking forward to life. And from there, why the brain has come to that kind of a dull, stupid state? It is sleeping. The physically I can understand. Maybe I am not able to walk, or maybe I am not able to, hear properly. I may need a hearing aid. But why this mind, which is caught in its loop, it is thinking only in the past, which it has gathered. That is really a hindrance to learning something in the present. Otherwise, life is learning till we take the last breath.
Sir,
Such a
about
beauty.
to ask the same thing.
Thank you very much.
Why do at all I need to learn?
Waghmare, please, time is over. Next
Okay,
Sunday, we
okay,
will be
okay.
listening Chaitanya sir. Sir, let it be a mystery. Your question, let it be a mystery to everybody. Thank you very much. Next Sunday, we will be listening Chaitanya sir. Thank you very much, Murali sir. Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank you
to
so much.
So, Kamlesh Modak, please finish it.